in his line, Prabhupada gave us that importance of deity worship even as soon as we were ready. It's interesting how that transition was made. But deity worship is important, and Srimad Bhagavatam is important. And it's through the agency of Srimad Bhagavatam that we come to know definitively, appropriately, and positively about Krishna from the 10th canto, and specifically even Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. Not that it's not spoken of in other Puranas, but particularly prominent in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavat Purana. Prior to Madhvacarya, there was not the same emphasis on Srimad Bhagavatam that he gave to the importance of Srimad Bhagavatam as evidence or pramana for his commentary on Brahma Sutra. That is to say, prior to him, it was not done. Shankara particularly, and Ramanuja Acharya similarly did not give emphasis to Srimad Bhagavatam or Mahabharata or the Smritis in general when writing commentaries. Not that it's not that Ramanujacharya didn't know, but the flavor, the intellectual mood during that period of time was just as that the three forms of evidence, remember from yesterday, the Shruti Praman, Nyayat Praman, and Smriti Praman. So they were emphasizing the first two and not so much the third. However, some of you may have received, I hope you received, if you didn't, you can complain to Varsana. She made an effort to circulate a document that shows that Radha's name, you see, some of you received it. Anybody didn't receive it? Radha's name is found within the Vedas. Okay, well, you saw it, but some people here may not have. You didn't receive it. Complain. He'll help you. You don't have to complain. Radharani's name is not expanded, but her name and position is identified in the Vedas, in the Shruti portion of the Vedas. And then in the Smriti portion, further expanded, and Srimad Bhagavatam ultimately expanded. And then through the Acharyas following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu further expanded and further expanded. Thus Radhastami. Okay, so this says class 2 because those of you that weren't with us, class 1 had 2 parts. So class 1 was our opening class in Udupi. This is class 2 in Udupi. And the topic, as you see, is the appearance, pastimes, and places of Madhvacarya. In the earlier section of his life at least, and there's 7 parts to it. And the first part is his appearance. Here's a photograph of the place where he appeared, Vimanagiri, or Kunjaragiri, the local language, and there's the road going up and up and up and up and up, and this is a mountain in the region where Madhvacharya made his appearance. Pachaka Kshetra is the name of the region, and shown here on this in this photograph is the hill where there's a deity of Durga who guards this area. Here's the deity of Durga. It is said that this deity of Durga was invited by Parashuram, as you remember from yesterday. The area can also be, or is also known as the place where Parashuram made his residence after chopping the demoniac kings many times. And so she guards the area in which Madhvacarya was born. So Madhvacarya was born as the son of Narayana Bhatta. We heard something about the line from which he was born, and his wife Vedavati. So, since the child was born in a row house, some of us live in row houses, and it was in a row of houses that was in the middle of the row. So Narayana Bhatta, the father, was also known as Nada Anti Ilaya Bhatta, or in Tulu language it means he was in the middle house, or Madhya Geha Bhatta. And that's the Madhya Geha, the middle house. And that's how he's addressed in this second book. This is where the references are coming from, the second book by Narayana Panditacharya. And so it's a note here is a Sanskritized form of his Tulu honorific, or that he was born from a middle house. Bhatta means he was from a Brahmana. Although Narayana Bhatta was called Nandatilya Bhatta locally, when the biography of Madhva was composed in Sanskrit, after his disappearance, he was called Madhyageha Bhatta. That's the father. Madhyageha Bhatta. And it's not how he's known by locals, but it's in his biography, Sanskrit biography. In South India, many of you know this, respectable persons aren't addressed by their first name, so he was just Bhatta. So Madhyageha Bhatta, very elevated person, very devoted person. He was a devotee and scholar from his early age. And he was always eager to hear the pastimes of incarnations of Vishnu. So that means he liked Srimad Bhagavatam and the Puranas very much. Very interested and inclined and inspired to hear such pastimes. And he, the father, regularly worshipped the local deity, although it was like a significant walk to get from his home. He regularly went to the Ananteshwara deity, which was considered the principal deity in the area, as we heard yesterday. And his father was particularly well known, along with his scholarship, etc., was for his being a reciter of Srimad Bhagavatam and Mahabharata. Let's see what happens. Here's an image meant to show demigods. See the demigods in the sky? The demigods, it is said in his biographies, plural, that Madhyageha, the father, was called Bhatta due to his expertise in these narrations, and that the demigods used to come and listen to his discourses. When he spoke, there were big crowds, and so he was a celebrated lover of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord and narrations of the pastimes. Later, Madhva, following his father, similarly took great interest. He wrote elaborate commentary. Both are celebrated, particularly his Mahabharata commentary is celebrated. Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnaya, celebrated commentary. And little subnotice, children have a tendency to take after their parents. They don't always, but there's a tendency. So if parents give some strong emphasis to hearing, reciting, and remembering and discussing, then it passes on to the children, commonly, by association. This is another important lesson. Madhva was the first to use Srimad Bhagavatam for particularly his commentary on Brahma Sutra, and also the Upanishads. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also accepted Srimad Bhagavatam as the primary pramana. And here's a little subnote. I mentioned this, but it's worth repeating. I'll just read it, it's nice. References within Shankara's and Ramanuja's commentaries, both Upanishads and Brahma Sutra commentaries, primarily were from the Upanishads and the Shrutis, the Shruti Pramana. The reason is, during his time, the others were considered, kind of poo-pooed. They're for less intelligent people and not strong-minded people, and so the weaker people go for those things, but we don't because we're scholarly people. It's kind of like the attitude, kind of a condescending attitude. However, Madhva broke ranks. He legitimized and gave support for why he was legitimizing, particularly Srimad Bhagavatam and Mahabharata, in his very scholarly works. And we've benefited from that. It wasn't easy. Scholars, you know how scholars are, they're a little proud. And they don't break ranks. Someone that breaks ranks gets put down for different reasons. And he broke ranks anyways. So we're benefiting from that. And this is part of the response to a question that Sri Radhika asked the other day. We're benefiting from that strength of Madhvacarya today. And the Bhadra Purnima event is coming up real soon, where we're going to be speaking more and more and more about the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's just, we're in the wake of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but before him, Acharya, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chose to receive initiation in the line of Madhvacarya for at least these two reasons: the emphasis on Srimad Bhagavatam and the emphasis upon deity worship. Similarly, prior to the advent of Shankaracharya, people of this coastal region used to follow Bhagavad Dharma of hearing and chanting, and they wore the appropriate tilak, the vertical tilak. But that changed during the time of Shankaracharya. We heard the Pancha Upasana message, and he had different tilak. After Advaita Vad took a foothold in the region, some followed the Smarta tenets. Smarta tenets, in this case, meaning they followed Shankara's teaching that said any one of the five deities is just fine, because really the final analysis is Advaita, that Nirguna Brahman, so you can worship this one, that one, the other one. That's okay, because that's not the essence anyways. However, in this region, there were still persons who were Vishnu worshippers, but externally they accepted the norm because they didn't want to be ostracized. In his home, there was a family deity, Ananta Padmanabha. This is a photograph of his family deity. Ananta Padmanabha is a Vishnu deity. And regularly at the same time, so strong in deity worship. Madhvacarya owned some land that was used for his income. It was tilled for him by a tenant. And Madhvacarya, his father, had some bulls and some cows and enough to live on as a respectable villager. Although he was a Brahmana, he had these other means for his income. However, as happens in this world, he sometimes had to borrow money to meet his expenses. And there was a little problem. His first two sons died. He had a daughter who remained. And so what did he do? He went regularly to worship the deity, Ananteshwara deity shown here in this photograph. And he felt life was incomplete. Now, he wasn't just a materialist. He had an idea, he had a desire that he would have a qualified son. He's a Brahmana wishing to have a qualified son. So what did he do as a Brahmana wishing to have a qualified son? He walked from his area a few hours each direction to worship this Ananteshwara deity, pictured here. And he prayed to the deity for the blessings of a son. But it wasn't a material, it was a spiritual aspiration from his side at least. And day after day, for 12 years, day after day, for 12 years, he made this journey of praying for a son with divine qualities. So there's another lesson. The way that Prabhupada expressed it is one should not beget a child like cats and dogs, or saying it in the positive way. If one is a parent and wants qualified children, then qualify yourself to have qualified children. And the standard is a standard in Vedic culture, exhibited prior to this, but by his father. He underwent austerities, and he was depending upon the deity, this sense of dependence upon the Supreme, for 12 years. He already had a daughter. 2 sons had died, and he was feeling, let's just assume he's a qualified Vaishnava. And therefore his desire to have a son wasn't just a material desire to have a son. It was another kind of a desire. And so one day they decided to remember Lord Narayana, undergo Garbhadan Samskara after 12 years of those austerities and praying to the deity, taking the Lord's blessings, stating their desire to the Supreme Lord that they should have a pure devotee son. And the purpose of the pure devotee son was to help others, the world, become free from suffering. So in this book, Madhva-Vijaya is one of the writings of Narayana Panditacharya. It's described that Lord Vayu, so another name for Lord Vayu is Mukhya Pran, he entered the body of Vedavati in his partial aspect, in the same way that a king enters a well-decorated city, shining, cleaned, with bright new gates, and containing houses with fine features. Actually, what happened in this other text when they conceived a child, it is described in this other text that an associate of Kuvera named Madhvacarya entered into Vedavati's womb at the time of conception. However, in the last stage of pregnancy, Vayu, the deity of the wind, entered the womb, and Madhvacarya moved out. Just as wind entering an enclosed space can displace objects in that space. And he didn't whine and complain. He was fine with being displaced. So now, this is the first of 7 pastimes, the birth or the conception of Madhvacarya as an expanded or a partial expansion of Vayu. And there she is, the mother, Vedavati. Now here's the birth date in the village. Pajaka Kshetra. This is the date when he appeared, and gives the date of this year when his appearance date falls, according to our Vaishnava calendar. And during the very moment when the child was born, the father, Madhvacarya, was in Udupi. What was he doing? He was at the temple worshiping and offering his prayers to the deity. He was very fixed in his bhakti. As soon as Sri Madhva was born, due to the good relationship he had with the rest of the villagers, there was a celebration in his hometown with artists playing drums, etc., etc. And he's not even there. He's with Ananteshwara. So the villagers rushed to the home, and as he was returning home, he heard the sound of the music, and everyone was in a joyful mood, looking at the baby and saying how beautiful, you know how people are when they see a newborn baby. Madhvacarya performed all the prescribed ceremonies. His new baby was seen to possess a large number of good qualities. I don't know how you see good qualities in a baby, but somehow you saw it. At least to me, they all look the same. Somehow, you could see. And he gave the name Vasudeva. So that was his birth name, Vasudeva. And this biography says the Devatas in heaven thought this was very good because he was Mukhya Pran, or Asudeva, Asupran, born for the specific purpose of redeeming correct knowledge, and he had a constant and great devotion for the Supreme Lord Krishna, who was the son of Vasudeva. You have to change that large, long A to a small a. And so now comes the next of 7 pastimes. Madhva, or Vasudeva, is offered to the deity. So the child is born a few hours away from the deity, and the father and mother, at the soonest possibility, because it took the mother some time to recover, etc., but they brought the child to the deity to receive blessings and offer their son. They understood this as one of their first duties, to pay respects to the deity who blessed them with this nice, qualified, amazing son. So as soon as the mother was fit, they went to Udupi with the child. The whole procession went with them for the occasion, and the child was offered to the deity. It was a newborn child, and the long journey back they didn't stay the night in Udupi, they made a journey back. However, the journey back was through a forest, and it was late in the evening. And it was a little difficult because there were no streetlights, no flashlights, no cell phones with the light feature on the cell phone. They were walking through the dark in the forest. And as they passed through this forest, winding up and down in a rugged forest, when they were passing through, this is at around midnight, an evil spirit who resided in the woods attacked one of the members of this traveling party, and that member started vomiting blood. Someone said, "It's wonderful that this fiend has not tormented the child." And then the spirit, ghost or whatever, entered the body of the person who had vomited the blood and then spoke. "I am capable of killing all those who come here at the time of our sport," which was midnight. "But all of you have been protected by the Lord of the world, Vishnu. It is a wonder that Mukhya Pran is showing himself as a mere child." The person that vomited blood said these things. Or the spook, the spirit, the fiend, the specter spoke through the body of the one that vomited blood. And everyone was really afraid. And they blamed themselves for making this journey at night through a deserted forest. And the commentary, this biography, says that the demon apparently was afraid of the child Vasudeva, where it is said that Vasudeva is no ordinary mortal. So that's the second pastime, childhood pastime. We're very early in his childhood, just a short while after he was born. And then the third pastime of 7 is Madhva was fed horse gram. Does anybody know what horse gram is? Horse gram is a kind of lentil that has high energy, high protein. It's called a horse gram because they feed it to horses because it makes them work hard or run fast, or, it's not normal human food. Horse gram. I had to look it up. Horse gram. And he had an older sister, and the mother, here's the picture of the mother with the 2 children, the older sister and little baby. So one day, the mother, Vedavati, had to go somewhere, do something, so she left the older daughter in charge of her son. And when she left, before she left, she fed the baby and then entrusted everything with some instructions, what to do, what not to do. And be very careful of your younger brother. However, as soon as the mother left, Vasudeva began to cry and cry and cry. The sister tried to do what she could do to pacify the child. Nothing worked. Said, "Your mother's going to be back soon. She'll have some nice things for you." But the child was crying and crying. Nothing worked. So what did she do? Horse gram to a new baby. You don't do that, but she did it. Finding that there was no possibility of making him calm down, she offered him a little quantity of boiled horse gram and allowed him to eat it. Not only he ate it, but he ate everything. Vasudeva took it with greedy appetite and refused to desist until the whole quantity of cooked horse gram was gone. There's a photograph of horse gram. It was far larger in quantity than a bullock could digest. But he was not happy until he consumed every grain of the heap, and stopped crying only after the hearty meal was over. Then the mother came back. And the mother found out what happened. And she was in distress, mothers. She saw her son smiling with a full stomach, and she heard what happened from the older sister. She scolded her and started, doing what mothers do, worrying and fretting and blaming herself for this misfortune. But her son was very, very happy, as if nothing happened. And even days after, no sign of indigestion. It's a little baby, you don't feed grains to a little baby. But no problem. And the explanation given in this biography is he had an appetite like Bhima. One of Bhima's name is Rikudar, right? Big appetite, voracious eater. And the painting, this little drawing, is meant to show a pastime of Bhima. The pastime. The big creature over there behind, it was Baka, the demon. So this is the pastimes from Mahabharata. After the House of Lac incident, where there was a plan to kill all the Pandavas and Kunti by burning a house that they were residing, a summer home. And by the grace of Vidura, they were rescued, and he went through a tunnel, went on the other side of the river because he was there. Akrura was there, not Akrura. Vidura was there to take them on a boat, and when they on the other side of the river, they traveled, and Bhima carried them all because it was the dead of night, and then they made a decision. They think that we're dead. Let's stay in a hidden position and see what else they're up to. So they adopted the disguise of Brahmanas and a Brahmani, their mother, and they went some distance to Ekachakra. Ekachakra later became the birthplace of Lord Nityananda. And it so happened that in Ekachakra, there was a demon named Baka, and he raided, because Ekachakra was at that time a center, a place where many Brahmanas resided, kind of like a Brahminical community. And they made a truce with Baka that once periodically we'll send a whole bullock cart full of edibles for you and a driver. And you can eat the edibles in the bullock cart, you can eat the driver, but please don't raid us. So he agreed. And then the home in which the 5 brothers were staying, and Kunti, it became their turn to sacrifice the father and all the edibles. And it became known in the house, he's going to give up his life. And they were in big anxiety. Privately, Kunti suggested to the wife, why not send my son? She said, no, you're a guest in her home. And she said, you don't know the strength of my son. Trust me, send my son. He'll take the bullock cart with the edibles. And we took the bullock cart with the edibles. He was so hungry, he was just eating all the edibles in the cart on the way to meet with Baka. Baka became furious. Baka tried to attack Bhima. Bhima finished him. And Bhima had already eaten all the edibles. So Bhima is known as having a voracious appetite. And by so doing, he slayed the demon Baka, and he saved the life of a Brahmana. It's to say that Vasudeva or Madhvacarya had qualities like Bhima because they're incarnations or expansions of Vayu, both of them, as was Hanuman. Another example given in this biography is the incident where Bhima ate lots of cake. So much cake. It was poison cake. The plan of Duryodhana was to go to a place where there was a big festival, and at the big festival they had some sporting activities, and at the end of the sporting activities there was a big feast. And the plan was, because Duryodhana particularly had a despise towards Bhima, because he was, as a young boy, when they played, boys will play, and he picked up the other boys and threw them around and Duryodhana was envious, wanted to kill him. So he fed him poison cake, enough poison to kill 10 men. And at the end of the day, when the Pandavas were to go back to where they were staying, Bhima said, "I'm feeling very tired, let me just rest." But he was, the effect of the poison was, he hadn't fully digested the poison yet. And so what did Duryodhana do? Duryodhana, after he fell asleep, he tied him up in ropes and tossed him into the Ganges to drown him. That was his murder plan, one of the murder plans. And what happened was, interestingly, from Mahabharata, there's different versions, but Bhima's body sank down and down and down, not only to the bottom of the Ganges River, but to a lower region where the Nagas reside, lower region of the universe. And the Nagas bit him, but the venom of the Nagas was just exactly the antidote for neutralizing the poison that had been fed by Duryodhana. And so he regained external consciousness, and what the painting is showing is he had a battle with the Nagas. He just burst the ropes and had the battle with the Nagas and finished them. All of this is, he had a big appetite. As Bhima had a big appetite, Madhvacarya, as a small boy, had a big appetite too, indicating Madhvacarya, as we heard already, is an incarnation of Vayu in the third iteration, Hanuman, Bhima, and Madhvacarya. A fourth pastime out of 7 is a very interesting pastime where, as a child, there was a little situation where he was dragged around by the tail of an ox. Not so dissimilar from Krishna's pastime, holding the tail of cows. One day, the child disappeared. Nobody knew where he was. They searched everywhere. They couldn't find him. They were in big anxiety. For hours they looked, and then, lo and behold, here comes the child holding onto the tail of an ox. And merrily the ox was traveling here and there, and the little boy was holding on to the tail of the ox, with no indication of fear or anything. Very happy. And the situation, according to the biography, was early in the morning he saw the bull, he grabbed the tail of the bull was panicked. He grabbed the tail of a bull, and he started moving about very quickly, and the boy wouldn't let go. So this way, that way for hours. And finally, he came back. The bull came back, and there was the boy holding on to the tail of the bull. And they were very concerned, needless to say. But then they looked closely, And they saw the boy wasn't harmed. He was beaming with smiles. And he was having fun. Like Krishna and Balaram were having fun pulling the tails of the cows and running here and there. So they treated him just like a little dependent child. Another pastime. Eventually, he's still very young. He's moving about on his hands and knees. So he was very energetic, young Madhvacarya. And they couldn't stop him. He went here, he went there. He didn't do mischief, he didn't cause anybody trouble. He didn't do pranks. He was just going here and there, very high energy little boy. What was that all about? Your son is like that too? Oh. We met one the other day. I think that other boy beats your son. We'll see. Then, child pastime number 5 is his father had a debt. Now his father had cows and he had land and he had someone taking care of the cows, but somehow the child, in his playful way, went to his father and asked for something to eat. But his father said, I can't do that because there's this fellow that I owe some money to, Kakra Shetty. And he had been given a bull by Kakra Shetty. Now Kakra Shetty wanted payment. And so Kakra Shetty was sitting right outside the doorstep, declaring he's going to fast. Now most people that are debtors, they don't care, let the man fast at my doorstep. But because this is a noble, virtuous Brahmana, he was in anxiety. So the father told the son, we can't take any food until we make some payment to Kakra Shetty. This is a teaching. There's 3 things that ruin a family. 3 things, if neglected. Ill health, Prabhupada said the same. We've heard this. There are 3 things that take priority. Fire, debt, and health. You pay attention to them when they come because it can bring big problems. So he explained to his son, I have to fast. And for that matter, our whole family has to fast, because if not, then it'll bring ruination to our family. So here's a photograph of some tamarind seeds. The little boy, Vasudeva, said to his father, please make some food. And he would take care of the debt to Mr. Shetty. And it was known that from time to time, during his play, with small child play, he would gather handfuls of tamarind seeds and he kept them in a bag, pretending that they were money, currency. And his father had observed there was a whole big bag of these dried tamarind seeds. They had a tamarind tree in the backyard. And so his father prepared food just as was asked. And the son, Vasudeva, went to the debtor, the person who was the debt was owed to, and he said to him, when they reached the tamarind tree, Vasudeva, the son, started pouring handfuls of dried tamarind seeds from the bag into the hand of the man who the debt was owed to. And as he poured the seeds, it was just a playful mood, and the man was listening to the playful behavior of his little boy, cute little boy. But suddenly, those tamarind seeds all turned into gold coins. There was a lot of gold coins, far more than what the debt was. So he was very satisfied and he went away. And Vasudeva went back and told his dad, it's all taken care of. Let's have the meal. Interesting pastime. For me, it's reminiscent of hearing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's childhood pastime, Nimai and Nitai and their childhood pastimes. So the lore for the followers of Madhvacarya are quite similar. Miraculous exhibitions or displays of his mystic powers. Then there was another time, again, his father had borrowed some money and Kanaka Shetty came for the payment and he was expecting another big bag of gold coins. But that's not what happened. Instead, the son completely changed the man's heart and gave him a more precious gift, that is bhakti. And he went away satisfied. There are no details on this particular event. Then there's two pastimes with trees. One is a pastime where the son planted a banyan tree upside down. Have you heard this one before? Premananda, have you heard this one before? Upside down banyan tree. In the place of their village, there were 4 ponds. It had said these 4 ponds were created by Parshuram, and Madhvacharya used to visit these 4 ponds every day and take bath. Here's a photograph of these 4 ponds. Danu's Tirtha, I remember visiting these places when we went to Udupi, at least hearing of them. Danu's Tirtha, Gada Tirtha, Bana Tirtha, and Parusu. I think that's after Parshuram, Tirtha. So there's what they look like, of photographs of them. And this Danu's Tirtha is 2 kilometers from Madhva's home. It's on top of a hill. And he went 2 kilometers to take his bath every day. And the Gada Tirtha, pictured here, it's down at the foot of a hill where there's a Parshuram temple at the top of the hill. And the other, the Bana Tirtha, pictured in the lower photograph, it's right behind the Kunjaru Giri, the hill. That's where we saw that before, where the Durga temple is. It's right behind there. And the Parashu means axe, and Parashuram is the Lord of the axe. Parashu Tirtha, about a half a kilometer behind his house. So he went to all these places daily. Now, his mother expressed she has difficulty going to all these 4 places every day. So Madhva saved her some problem. He created a Vasudeva Tirtha right behind their house. And he said to his mother, taking bath in this new pond is equal to taking bath in all 4 ponds. She was not so sure about that. So he wanted to demonstrate that it's for real. So the father used to visit all 4. Once the father found it hard to go to all 4, and so what happened was the Vasudeva Tirtha was created, and to prove to everybody it was real, Vasudeva uprooted a banyan tree, a small banyan tree, and planted it upside down. Roots upwards. Chapter 15, Bhagavad Gita, right? And he pledged that the tree would grow and thrive if fed the water from this Vasudeva Tirtha. And sure enough, the tree grew, and the tree grew, and the tree grew upside down. I don't know how it would look upside down banyan tree, but He wanted the followers, the village people, and his father and mother to have faith in what he said and did. And here's the final pastime. We're almost done. There's another tree planting pastime of a banyan tree. The little boy was carrying around this stick. And his father asked, "Why are you holding that stick?" And he said, "I'm going to reestablish Vaishnava Dharma." That's what the little boy said to his father. And his father said, "Really? In this age, it would be only possible if that dry stick in your hand sprouts." So he took the challenge and he stuck the stick in the ground and it sprouted and grew into a big tree. And that big tree is right near the Vasudev Kund. So over a period of time, it became known that this was a symbol of Madhvacarya replanting Vaishnava Dharma or Vaishnava Siddhanta. So these are pastimes and places and his appearance found in this nice biography of Narayana Panditacharya, the second one. And there's more coming attractions. So on this Radhastami morning, with absorption in Madhvacharya, but we'll switch channels very soon to Srimati Radharani. Again, I'd like to say, for me, the emphasis is upon Madhvacharya's establishing the veracity and authority of Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, it's in Srimad Bhagavatam, but others that took other priorities had their scriptural references and their basis for taking those other priorities of Shruti, not Smriti, or Shruti and Brahma Sutra or Vedanta Sutra, as that's authoritative. But he broke ranks, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu similarly developed that further, and his followers developed it further, and here we are, honoring Srimati Radharani on Radhastami. Did we discuss yesterday the topic of, I think we did, the topic of Madhvacharya in his, yes we did, Madhvacharya in his different tattvas. The one supreme tattva is the personality of Godhead, Narayana, and he's the only independent. And all other entities are dependent, including Lakshmi. Lakshmi isn't a category by herself. She's a dependent jiva, according to Madhva. Shakti Tattva is not part of his teachings. She is a dependent jiva, but never touched by Maya. And then there's dependent jivas that are touched by Maya. All other jivas are touched by Maya. And some of those jivas that are touched by Maya can become liberated, and some don't become liberated, and some will never become liberated. There's categories of jivas as part of his teachings. Poor jivas that will never become liberated. And in the category of jivas that will never become liberated, an example is given as Kali Yuga personified as a jiva that will never become liberated. So we don't need to worry. There's eligibility. But, there's criterion for that eligibility. So we have obviously a different picture of who is Lakshmi. In fact, our picture of Lakshmi is she's an expansion. She's one of the expansions of Srimati Radharani as the Shakti Tattva, not just Jiva Tattva, but Shakti Tattva of the Supreme Lord. So the goddess of fortune, the queens of Dwarka and the gopis. They're in the category of expansions of Srimati Radharani. And she's the Rani. She's the queen. Vrindarani, the queen of Vrindavan. Okay, so let's see if there's some discussion. You have something?
Maharaj, this is, I have seen a movie of Madhvacarya.
You have what?
I've seen a movie which has been screened in Kannada, the whole pastime of Madhvacarya, but I don't see these pastimes there. Honestly, this is really new.
Well, it's not from me, it's from his followers, these two principal acharyas that were directly in his association. That's where this comes from.
This is beautiful. I had a couple questions. One is his father, the parents prayed for 12 years.
12 years.
So I was just wondering, when I want to pray, I'll just pray 1 or 2 times and then I'll say, nothing happened to me. So, and then the parents prayed for 12 years constantly. So, wow, that makes sense for me. It's not that if you just pray something, Krishna will give you as soon as possible. It's not possible. So it's Krishna's desire. If he wants to give, he will give, but our endeavor, our prayer has to be there. That's what I understand. Maybe you can throw some light.
It's not only they prayed, but it doesn't specify, at least I'm unaware of what austerities were specified that they did, but the purpose behind those austerities, whatever they did, was purposeful. And the purpose wasn't, we want to be parents. The purpose was, we want to serve the Supreme Lord in this way. So it takes elevated consciousness to do what they did, and the result of elevated consciousness was elevated consciousness. So, in anything that we do, like, we're observing Radhastami. And the consciousness with which we're observing Radhastami has everything to do with what our experience will be. And our relationship, just like yesterday evening, that discussion with, having Radharani's mercy to come to Shyamananda Pandit. So, consciousness is the we can give it to him because he's got to go back on the altar. He can take the next question because he can give it back to him. But it's there's 2 references, but here's one of them. Yadrashi Shraddha Siddhi Bhavati Tadrashi, that says one's Siddhi Bhavati, or perfection, arises corresponding to one's faith. So faith is the seed, but then the seed has some behaviors that can be seen, some external manifestations of something that's already within. And already within can be polished and strengthened. And so behind everything that we do, the absorption in that which we have faith in has everything to do with the outcome of our lives and the fruits of our activities, auspicious or transcendental or otherwise. Yes.
Yesterday, I just hear it is remembering the yesterday's class. Yesterday, you were mentioning that Radharani taught a sloka or prayers to Gopakumara, particular prayer. So that is that same sloka like Oi Dinodaradhanatha Mathuranatha, that sloka or different sloka?
I got about 10% of what you said.
What is that sloka?
Let him say.
Radharani taught.
Let him say.
He's asking what is the verse that Srimati Radharani taught to Gopakumar that you had referenced in yesterday's class?
Radharani taught to Gopakumar. I don't know of a verse that Radharani taught to Gopakumar.
Gopakumar's spiritual master gave him a mantra. One of the mantras that you chant was given to him by his guru. But I don't know of anything that Radharani taught him. Okay? Maybe I didn't speak clearly. Maybe you didn't hear clearly. There's some gap between that message transmission. It's his spiritual master. Gave him mantra. Is that okay? Not okay. What is the mantra? It's Gopal mantra. One of your mantras. Mantra number 6 of your mantras. Gayatri mantra number 6. Gopal mantra. Is that okay? You got a puzzled look in your forehead. Okay, go ahead.
I was wondering about Vayu.
Vayu.
Is he a pure devotee of Krishna?
Is he a pure devotee of Krishna, you want to know? Well, it depends if you're a Madhva or not, the answer to your question. According to the Madhvas, he's Jivotama. We heard that yesterday. Jiva Uttama, amongst Jivas. So there's the Lakshmi, we discussed this yesterday. She's never touched by Maya. And of those Jivas that are touched by Maya, he's Jivotama. Pure devotee, he's a demigod, so how you can be a pure devotee and take the post of a demigod? But so he's touched by Maya, but he's the topmost of those touched by Maya, according to the Madhvas.
But Madhva was pure devotee.
Madhva what?
Madhva was pure devotee, right?
He's a manifestation of that Vayu. Or an expansion of Vayu became Madhvacarya. It's another way of saying an angsa of Jiva Jivan has got his hand up, like anything. Something.
Two questions, Maharaj. One is his question is, what is the verse that Srimati Radharani gave to Shyamananda Pandit?
Oh, to Shyamananda Pandit. Oh. I don't know if Radharani gave a verse. She gave a name. No. When she gave a name, did she give a mantra? Is that your question? It's a secret mantra. If she gave a mantra, I don't know anything in the pastime that says she also gave him mantra. She gave him name, she gave him tilak, and she gave him a deity. Now, deities are worshipped through mantra, but did she give him mantra on top of the mantra that he already had received in his earthly pastimes? I don't recall any description that she, Radha, also gave mantra. You look sad. If there was such a mantra, I don't know anything about it. It was a secret mantra, if she did. But I don't recall saying, here, reading, she gave mantra. You want to say something more?
Yeah, but my point is, Radharani was chanting that prayer to Krishna. What is there? That Mahaprabhu took it very seriously and he was continuously chanting that mantra, that prayer, Ai Dinadara, Dayardanath, Mathuranath, that sloka. What is that?
So, Madhavendra Puri chanted this Ayadina Da.
Yeah, he did.
And he's trying to understand that Mahaprabhu also appreciated that mantra very much. What is that special potency in that verse that Madhavendra Puri chanted?
What's the special potency in the verse that Madhavendra Puri recited?
Yes, over and over again.
Well, I don't know if there's a special potency in that verse, as much as there's a special potency in the mood behind the verse. The special potency in the mood is the mood of Radha's love Radha's love in separation. Feelings of separation. It's the mood behind the verse, not the verse per se. As far as I understand. In other words, it's not that he, Madhavendra Puri, received a mantra from someone, from a guru. And that mantra he recited again and again because it was a mantra he received from his guru. That's not my understanding of what happened. It's just a mood. He is an acharya, and in his acharya capacity, he took shelter of a mood and composed a verse that he recited again and again that connected him to the mood of Radharani in feelings of love and separation from Krishna. So he cultivated that again and again and again, and that's what he passed on to Ishwara Puri, who passed it on to Mahaprabhu. But Mahaprabhu already had it because he's Mahaprabhu. Okay, next.
Shri Radhika took your comment seriously.
I thought you were going to channel her. She sent a text message.
Yeah, she's channeling through me, Maharaj.
Okay.
She's wanting to get a visual depiction of how our disciplic succession branches off from the Madhva Sampradaya. So she's asking, you commented that we are a shaka, we are a branch of the line.
Yes.
And the shaka has the qualities of the trunk, with
Yes.
some distinct characteristics too.
Yes.
So at what point does our branch off from the Madhva line? Is it that a Gaudiya Sampradaya runs concurrent until the point of Ishwara Puri, probably she means Madhavendra Puri, and branches off then with his worship of Radha and Krishna and the mood of the gopis' separation from Krishna?
If I've understood the question correctly, Madhavendra Puri is the instigator or the starting point of the branch. And then the branch further developed and the branch further developed. Further developed with Ishwara Puri and further developed with Mahaprabhu. And then it became branches of that branch. So if I've understood her question correctly, the starting point of the branch is Madhavendra Puri.
Obviously, Madhvacarya, being an incarnation of Vayu, is empowered personality. And so how do we understand this point that you were talking about, different categories of jiva? And even our own understanding, when there is a debate about whether jiva fell down or all of that, we are learning something about it depending upon from the source from where it is coming from. There is no point in intellectually trying to understand. At least that's the way I feel. But Madhvacarya was an extraordinary personality, and when there is such a clear description by him about different categories of jiva, how do we even try to understand?
How to reconcile?
Yeah.
That's your question. With palms folded. That's how you reconcile. Or in other words, the teaching of Lord Chaitanya and his followers, Rupa and Sanatan, etc., did not enshrine that principle. Rather, they enshrined another principle. So how to reconcile? With palms folded. My answer to your question is similar to my answer to Shri Radhika's question. How do we regard these differences? With respect, palms folded. And he had the view rooted in Shastra with a particular mission. The mission was Lord Vishnu, according to his biography, or the biography of him. Vishnu asked Vayu, here's some service. And it was, yes, sir. So according to the mission, rooted in Shastra, he established what he established. So now your question, how to reconcile it. Palms folded. He did what he did for a particular purpose, and he did it successfully. There was a sampradaya, Brahma Madhva sampradaya from Lord Brahma. So that's how we reconcile it. He did what he did, and we respect him and what he did. And we don't adhere because we're Shakaved, but we respect. He wrote what he wrote and said what he said and established what he established, and we're indebted to him. We have great respect. We don't agree with all of the points, that's okay, because we're followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that's a branch. We're very faithful to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and very respectful to Madhva. I'm sure this is going to come up like multiple times when you finally make it to Udupi, because there are going to be different types of people in that audience, not just persons like you that have been around for how many years? 25, 30 years, whatever it is. So it's going to be newer people. They're going to be spinning, I suspect. But you have something?
Shamakun Prabhu sent a note that the link...
Who sent the note?
Shamakun Prabhu.
Sham? Okay.
That the link between Gaudiya Vaishnavism and to Madhvacharya's line was Lakshmipati Tirtha.
Lakshmipati Tirtha. What about him?
He is the link before even Madhavendra Puri.
Before even Madhavendra Puri.
Yeah.
Lakshmipati Tirtha started something.
Yes. He is the link.
Let's not discuss it right now, but he can send me a text. My understanding is from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Yes, there was but the mood was developed by Madhavendra Puri. That's what Chaitanya Charitamrita says. That's my understanding of what Chaitanya Charitamrita says. You want to add to this?
No, a question.
Another, different.
My question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So thinking about our disciplic succession again, Maharaj, we see in Madhvacharya's teachings there's certainly distinctions from what we've heard and appreciate very much in the Gauriya line. And then going back a little further, we say we are Brahma, Madhva, Gauriya Sampradaya.
Yes.
When we look at Lord Brahma's teachings that we are exposed to in the Srimad Bhagavatam and other related scriptures, Brahma Samhita,
Yes.
we accept it wholeheartedly.
Yes.
It's 100% aligned with
Yes.
Lord Brahma.
Yes.
It seems like.
Yes.
And then Madhvacharya is, in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is it bringing it back to the original? I'm trying to understand.
It's not exactly like that. There's details, not exactly like that. There's details within Mahaprabhu's teachings that are not exactly from Srimad Bhagavatam, Brahma speaking, and so on and so on. There's diversity within Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. For example, prominent is the most exalted of all the worship of Krishna is the worship of the gopis for Krishna. That's certainly within his teachings, and I don't see that in Brahma's verses of the Bhagavatam.
I thought it is there, Maharaj, in chapter 14, canto 10. Towards the end, he glorifies the gopis.
Yes, it's there in the Bhagavatam, but it's not with the same focus that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presented. So he's highlighting something doesn't get the same highlight. You know, it's there in the beginning parts, in the first canto, in Kunti's and grandfather Bhishma's and so on. It's there, but it's not magnified. Just like Radharani's name is there in the Upanishads. It's just not magnified. So it's a contribution of Brahma Madhvacarya. It's not just he brought it back. He is emphasizing certain things and highlighting certain things. The basis of Mahaprabhu making that emphasis is rooted in the Bhagavatam. There's scriptural authority for that emphasis. But it's not just alignment with. It's not. That's an over. Yes, but that's an oversimplification. Madhva went over there and he just brought it back. It's not. That's an oversimplification of the progression. You have something?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have some curious question. So Madhvacharya's father was doing a lot of austerities to beget his son.
Yes.
Okay? So, but I mean, from my understanding, I mean, Bhakti Siddhanta or Prabhupada, I mean, they were more interested in making other disciples than children. So, I mean, like, which is the right thing? I mean, like, or both are the right approaches, or like getting children or disciples?
I got about 40%. Could you repeat what he said? Jagatananda, you got it? Just say it. Austerities, etc. Yeah. Bhakti Siddhanta. Yeah. Fantastic. Is there diversity in the spiritual realm? Fantastic. It's got to be one thing and one thing only. It can't have diversity in the spiritual realm. There's diversity. No problem. It's wonderful. Huh? It's okay. But there's diversity. But his point is, Bhaktisiddhanta didn't produce children. He produced pure devotees. Oh, which is better? You know, according to the Lord's plan, that's better. The main thing is be connected to the Lord, and that's what's better. And whatever He wants, that's what's better. For different persons, this is better. For other person, that's better. Just be connected. Let's end. It's time to end. Srila Prabhupada ki.